All right. So overall at Parlay, like you've probably already seen, Parlay, we're focused on class discussions for a new generation of learners. Of course, this has become a little more apparent now than it was a few months ago. But there's a few different reasons why we focus on discussions specifically. First, lots of research that they drive student achievement. They're a really impactful learning activity when used to discuss curricular content. They teach those transferable skills like critical thinking, communication, and collaboration, like we were just talking about. They encourage us to be thoughtful and open-minded citizens, and they also teach that SEL component, so social awareness, empathy, and interpersonal relationship skills. And this is also where that community aspect comes in, where we're trying to make sure students feel like they're still part of a learning community and feel connected and are collaborating. So overall, our focus is to really help teachers and students with student-driven discussions, so that really all students have maximum opportunity to gain the benefits and develop all of these skills. There's 3 different parts to Parlay, which I'll show you. The first part is the Parlay Universe. So this is a discussion prompt library that has lots of different topics that you can explore. You can look at examples of how other teachers have done it, or you can create your own. And then basically you take one of these discussion topics, edit or create your own, and have an online roundtable discussion. So this is an online written discussion. Students are writing their ideas, they're submitting them to the forum. They're given anonymous identities, which are really fun. There's lots of data, visualizations about engagement that really help with motivating students to bring their voice to the discussion, and lots of insights for assessment. You could have an online roundtable discussion asynchronously, so over a couple of days, or at the same time. What we see is really popular is teachers will say, okay, Monday and Tuesday, everybody log on and submit your initial response. And then maybe Wednesday between 12 and 4, I want everybody to go on and do the commenting feature. So go in and leave comments on people's ideas and continue conversations. So that's a way that you could scaffold it a little bit. The last piece is the live roundtable. This is for synchronous Zoom sessions. So are you thinking of running a live roundtable like a Socratic seminar via Zoom, or you're not sure right now?
Not sure yet. One of our teachers did what she was calling a Zoominar. So she did a seminar type discussion just using Zoom.
Okay.
But when I saw this, I was like, oh, this would have been the perfect way for her to try and do that.
Yeah. So how this basically works is you have Hangouts and Zoom in the background. You get kids to, maybe I'll turn off their video so they save bandwidth, and then you keep their audio on or their microphone on, and then they have Parlay open on their screen. So there's multiple ways for them to participate in the discussion and ultimately getting to the goal of everybody speaking up and verbally contributing. So they could be writing notes, they could be voting for their friends, they could be voting in polls for the whole class, and then of course they could tap in and actually speak up and share their idea. So this kind of organizes that a little bit better and makes students focus a little bit more on their own participation, how they can improve that. Maybe that means speaking up more, maybe that means, letting some space for other people to speak up. So it's a really good tool for like self-regulation and skill development.
Okay, you may be getting to this in a minute. If you are, I'm sorry to sidetrack you. But like one of the issues we've had with Zoom is we tell kids, well, unmute yourself if you've got a question, and there'll be like 4 of them to unmute at the same time, and I'll start talking. So when you're saying they tap in, do they have to be like selected to be unmuted, or is that something they do on their own?
We've kind of left that up to the teacher to decide. So in cases where students have really noisy backgrounds, maybe they can unmute themselves. So maybe the teacher can allow them the ability to unmute themselves and then speak up, and then when they're done, mute again. Or if they have quiet backgrounds, which I know is kind of rare, then you'd be able to just have them keep their microphones on the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the main thing is on Zoom or Hangouts, whatever it is, allow them the ability to mute and unmute themselves when appropriate. That's another skill. Okay, so that's kind of like the high-level overview, and then I'm going to kind of walk you through how you would actually take a prompt and then publish it in for an online roundtable, then transfer it to a live discussion. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay. So I'm going to open up the Parlay Universe here. Lots of different topics that you could use to get started. So we've organized them into different collections. So we see like topics of the future, sustainable development goals, getting started, and then even featured roundtables. For the featured roundtables, these are ones that are really connected to what's going on in the world. So there's lots in here about discussing the coronavirus and kind of good introductory discussions to get students thinking about how online learning is going for them, especially this one I've been recommending a lot for students, just an open conversation about what's challenging and how they could collaborate with each other to basically give each other some good strategies and what's working for them. You could also browse by subject area up here. So lots of different kind of topic areas. I'm going to go into math and see what we have here. So we have examples now of how other teachers have been prompting discussions in math.
Okay.
Do you see anything that is like related to what you're doing? We could kind of go in and see how it works.
Sure. Either the because I do geometry, so either the angle of elevation and depression, or for my algebra 2 kids, the logistic functions.
Okay.
One of those two.
Okay. So yeah, I'll go into this one here. The way that we organize all of the prompts in the universe is kind of like 4 steps. So we'll have learning goals. So what are the students going to be learning, but also what skills are they practicing? Then we'll give them some content. So in this case, there's a video. You could also embed YouTube videos in here as well. Maybe you want to give them an article to look through, or even, some pictures, political cartoon, whatever it is. And then for the discussion questions, in this case, this teacher has put in some examples or like a case study for them to go in and try and solve for the missing side. So they would basically, in their answer, of course, walk through and explain how they would solve this problem.
Okay.
And then the last piece, peer feedback instructions, this one is, okay, go comment on one of your peers' posts with the following guidelines. So I agree because blank, or I disagree because blank. So it's a lot more of like a peer feedback activity and walking through each other's kind of solutions.
Okay.
So let's say you wanted to have this discussion with your class. You just click Create Roundtable, and you can make any edits to this before you invite students to it. So maybe you want to, so first I would actually sign in with Google or Microsoft. I have my own account, but you would basically just link it back to your school account so you don't have to create a new username and password. You'd select which course. And then before you go and invite your students, now we have this topic that is made a copy in my Parlay class. I can make any edits that I want before I actually invite students. So this is where you can go and maybe you don't like this question, you could take it out, or you want to add in a picture or a video here and change up the questions. You could do all of that here. So links, pictures, videos. You could, simplify it, or of course you could just create your own. If you wanted to create your own topic, you just click this Create New button, and then you choose Online, you choose Create Your Own, and that's going to give you just this template of learning goals, content, questions, peer feedback, that you could, of course, take this out. You don't have to use it.
Okay.
And so let's say I want to invite students to this discussion. What I would do is click Invite Students, and now I have a few options. I could give them this code to enter at parlayideas.com, or I could share this magic link with them, or I can click Add to Google Classroom, and this is going to actually post this link in my Google Classroom. So it's going to ask me which course I want to add it to, and then it's going to ask me create an assignment, ask a question, make an announcement, or create material. Maybe I'll do create an assignment. And this is actually going to now post that link into Google Classroom and just tell students Okay, follow the link to join Parlay. Maybe I'll say make sure you sign in with Google. Students click that, they're going to be prompted to log in to Parlay and use those Google accounts. So yeah, so like I said, you can give them the code, give them the link. If that didn't work for some reason, if that's not working, you could just copy this link and just post it on Google Classroom.
I think that might be my best bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it basically is doing the same thing. The link and the Google Classroom link are the exact same. And then once you're having subsequent discussions down the road, like I said, you can come back in here and you could just manually invite everybody in. So when the students join, they're automatically added to that discussion again.
Okay.
So all this is to say you don't have to manually enroll students in Parlay. As soon as they click that link, they're automatically enrolled in your course. So I'm just going to log out as a student, and I'm going to log out as a teacher. I'm going to log in as a student so you can see what it looks like. So I'm going to paste the link here that the teacher gave me. I'm pretending I'm a student. And now I'm going to log in with Google. Now it's going to ask me which account. And now I'm in, and it says, welcome to the discussion. First review the prompt, then submit your response, then join the discussion. So I say okay. And now I have my learning goals, content, questions, and peer feedback here on the left. And then on the right is where I can now type in and respond. So I could throw in links, pictures, and videos. As a teacher, the teacher can set the criteria that you want them to be looking through and that you're assessing them on. So you could totally customize the point details. That's up here. And then because all the students are anonymous in this discussion, they're all going to get famous secret identities. So I would be Freddie Mercury.
Okay.
And for every new discussion they enter, they get a new identity. So we have a list of about 200 different ones, and they're random people from history from different places. So you get a new one every time, but the teacher can always see who's who.
Okay. Here's another very math-specific question.
Sure.
But I see there's a square root symbol on there. Is that like an equation editor, or does that only do square roots?
Yeah. So this is an equation editor. We are actually just beta testing with this. So this is not
wonderful.
This is not automatically appearing for everybody. But if you would like me to add this to your account, I can. I'll take your email and I'll make sure that your students and your students and yourself have access to this that they could use.
That would be great. Right.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so when the students are ready to go, they basically click Submit Response, and they say Confirm, and now it says Welcome to the discussion. Now they review their responses, or review other people's responses, give feedback, and then build on each other's ideas. So I say okay, and I'm actually the only one in this discussion right now. So I would basically, maybe I would come back later, or maybe other people are joining in. But I'll show you what it looks like from the teacher view when there's lots of different students in this discussion.
Okay.
So here's an example of a discussion. Once it loads here. Okay, so I'll just get rid of this little toolbar on the side, but essentially I have all the online roundtables and then all the live roundtables here. And so here I have all my students on the left-hand side, and then I have all the students and their comments and their original submissions here on the right. So I can click to see Michelangelo's, it'll bring it to him. I click to see Martin Luther King, it'll bring me right to his idea. And down to Cleopatra, and I'll see Cleopatra's idea.
Okay. Now, do you know who these students are?
Yes. So if I click the eye icon here, I can always see the real names. So I really have Harpreet, Jordan, Alex, Yuna, or the identities. What
Gotcha.
what a lot of teachers have been doing in online learning is they'll keep it on for like the first most of the discussion, get everybody to submit their ideas, get some commenting going, and then they can go and turn it off. They'll of course tell their students they're doing this, but you can do that, and that will reveal everybody's names and still kind of keep students aware that they're talking to their classmates.
Okay.
So that's one way to do it. Also, you could set these peer feedback questions that appear. So you could kind of give them some sentence stems of how they would be interacting, how they could give feedback to somebody's idea. So do you agree with this person? Why or why not? Or how could they improve it? Or how did it change your perspective on it? So you could customize these and add your own at the bottom. And these little peer feedback questions are going to show up actually when you click somebody's response. Let's look at Michelangelo's, and I scroll below. When I go and leave a comment, I see those guiding questions.
Okay.
So kind of just prompt them to get at a little more substantive answers. And then if I scroll below, I see, okay, Cleopatra responded, Martin Luther King, Michelangelo, and you have kind of a thread of discussion developing down here below each person's idea.
Okay.
What some teachers have been doing as well is they'll make like a fake student account, and they'll go in and they'll have the secret identity that they can go and join in the discussion and ask hard questions and all of that, so the students don't know it's them. And I know
I like that.
yeah, and then there's one teacher that he'll say, okay, if you can guess which one I am correctly, I'll give you an extra point or something like that. So just a fun way to switch it up. But as a teacher, if you wanted to comment, I would come up as my real name. So I'd show up as my real name unless I go and just create that fake student email.
Okay.
And then let's say I want to assess Michelangelo here. I would actually first go and set my assessment criteria. So you could choose level 1, 2, 3, 4, or all the way up to 10, however you want it to be assessed. And then you could either use our pre-made criteria that we have, or you can just go and add in your own at the bottom. So you can click create assessment point and basically add in, maybe we're looking for evidence. Then you would outline what a 4 looks like, what a 3 looks like, what a 2 looks like, what a 1 looks like. I know it's a bit different in math, but you could totally customize this.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
All right, so if I go down to Michelangelo's post here, and if I click the assessment tab, now it's going to pull up this rubric. So I could basically toggle through and assess each point by just toggling through. I'm going to be able to give written feedback to the student, so I can go in and write some ideas to give to them and send it. And then Parlay is also going to suggest some automatic feedback. So in this case, it's saying none of your comments included questions. Next time, try asking a question or two to help develop the conversation. So you could hover over and see, okay, Parlay did not detect any question marks. And if you thought that was a good piece of feedback, you just add that right in, and that will go into your comments.
Okay.
So just a quick way to help cut down what we already know about the student and use it effectively. And then we see how the student compares to the class average in this graph. And this is how many comments they've made, and then how many comment applause they've received.
So do the students see that as well?
Yes. So they'll also see this. Of course, this is not always extremely accurate, right? They might be applauding their friends' ideas. But given that it's anonymous, you could probably somewhat assume.
Okay.
And then you could see a summary of all of their comments. So this student made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comments in this discussion. So now you could get a snapshot of not only their original ideas, but how they were engaging and collaborating with their peers.
Okay.
And then if you can see the context, and this is going to basically take you to what they wrote and what conversation it was happening in. So that's individual assessment. And then what's really cool is now at any point in the conversation, the students or the teacher can pull up the class summary up here at the top. And this is class-wide analytics for how engagement looks for the whole class. So we see how many submitted a response, how many gave at least one comment, how many received at least one. These numbers are pretty good. They're all green. If they're a bit lower, they'll be like yellow or red. But you can kind of work your class towards a goal of, okay, let's see if we can get all the numbers to the green, or let's see if we can all get them all to 100. And we have built-in reflection questions here as well that you could even pull this up at the beginning of a synchronous session and kind of talk about some of this data at the beginning of your synchronous Zoom session as a nice transition.
Okay.
Average word count. This is going to pull out your key themes and ideas. Of course, this is going to look a little different for math. I'm very curious actually to see what would come up. But you'd generally be able to see the most popular vocabulary words.
Right.
As a teacher, you could star model submissions. So if you really like someone's solution or the way that they've structured something, or even a good conversation that went on in the comments section, you can star it, and all the students will get a little notification, and it'll show up here that you could draw their attention to it. You can get the average comments per student, and then for the whole class, you can see this nice chord diagram, which is going to show every student as a different color, and then basically you can hover over each student and see how many comments they've made, to whom they actually made those comments, and then if there was a lot of back and forth discussion, you can see, where's a good example? Yeah, I guess this one's good. The band is a little bit thicker, whereas for some cases it's going to be kind of a band that drops off. That means the person didn't respond.
Okay.
So you can get them kind of thinking about how they're continuing conversations and all of that.
So the actual wider one that you first pointed at might have been where they were asking each other questions and
Right.
and answering them, and it's set where the others might just be, I really like what you said about. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then, for example, this little student down here, the student did not give any comments at all. Same with this little one up here. So they won't show up in the graph if they made no comments. But generally, of course, you can see how balanced it was. Did we hear from everybody and all that? And they could see this as well. If it's anonymous, they'll just see this as like student 1, student 2, student 3, student 4. If anonymity is turned off, then they would be able to see the real names. But it's a very powerful reflection kind of tool. And then at the end of this discussion, you can export all of the data. So this, you could save it to Google Drive or just CSV file, which is like a Excel spreadsheet. And I'll show you what that looks like. Oops. Here we go. Can you see this still?
I can.
Awesome. So yeah, basically it would look like this. You have your student list. You have which anonymous identities they had. You have whether or not they responded, how many comments they made, their average comment length, each of the criteria that you chose, and then you'll also get the written feedback as well. So all of that is kind of, you could export back into your notebook.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the online roundtable. Do you have any questions about this?
No, it's very interesting. Now this, because I'm just trying to think. We've had some issues with connectivity in our Zoom meetings. Kids getting dropped and popping back in. I really think this online one might be a much easier approach to try with them at first than trying to do one where there's an actual verbal discussion going on along with it.
Yeah, I agree. This is a lot simpler to get started with. And students, the teacher has a lot more control. They can go in and you could delete something if you think it's inappropriate. Students cannot delete anything. So a teacher can go in and delete comments or submissions, and then you could just easily kick a student out. I know you could exit them, and this will automatically remove all of their comments and anything from this roundtable. So especially to get started with, I recommend starting with this anyways, just because it's a lot more, it's very controlled, and the teacher has a lot of, control over how everything's happening.
Okay.
If you wanted to have this discussion with multiple classes, you can essentially duplicate the roundtable. And let's say you made a really awesome prompt and you want to make a copy of it and put it into your different courses, you could do that. So we do recommend separating your classes into different courses, just so all of your assessment data is nicely organized. And you'd basically go up here and create a new course. And then just start duplicating the new roundtables into that.
Okay.
So that's pretty much it for the online roundtable. You said you also want to see the live too, right?
I would like to see a little something on the live.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if it works well, then it might be one that we could even use, because we're required to do seminar mapping while all of our students are having discussions when we're in class.
Okay.
And they basically look like the little chart you showed just a minute ago, where we're drawing them out while the kids are talking and taking notes on what they say.
Right.
Where it seems like this would do that for us.
Yeah. This is going to give you a lot more information. Typically this was, of course, designed for an in-class environment, the live roundtable, but we found that a lot of students or a lot of teachers were having trouble with these Zoom sessions and having students not really speaking up and not really knowing how to engage the whole class. So it's definitely possible to do online. Typically in class, what it looks like is this. So you're probably familiar with this, but you have...
Yes.
Yeah. You have your class sitting in a circle, and they're verbally speaking out loud to each other.
I found it relating a lot to John Locke's idea of democracy, right? So by him implementing social programs, he really just...
So this teacher put a big focus on notes, having students writing notes, but you don't need to do that.
I would say in a way because it just helps people get by. Although, like, the New Deal is very beneficial.
So that's conceptually what it looks like in class. But if I wanted to create one online, I can either transfer this discussion to online by clicking Go Live, and this is going to create a new live discussion with everyone that was in this online discussion. Or you just open up on the side here and you just create a new live discussion.
Okay.
And this would basically, before you invite your students, you could set the questions that you want students to look at. You could change the title up here to say Fridays. You can use we have 2 YouTube videos that are really good to watch to get students thinking about how to participate in this. I recommend those. And then you could also set the polls. So set any polls of, agree or disagree and help kick off a conversation that way. I'll show you what it looks like from teacher view first. So essentially, when students log in, they're going to see basically, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you student view first. I think that's easier. Basically, you would have Hangouts or Zoom in the background or Google Meet in the background, just like I have. You'd have students turn off their camera just because usually it's distracting, and you can save some bandwidth that way as well. And then you can also get students to either keep their mic on, like I said, or you turn their mic off. And once they're in the discussion and ready to go, we usually recommend taking a few seconds or a few minutes for students to just jot down some initial ideas they have about your guiding questions. So at least they could have something to share and think about what they might want to contribute or bring to the discussion. And in the worst case, if they don't actually contribute, then at least you have something to work with for assessment, and at least they're accountable to something.
Okay.
And then when the discussion starts, now the students can tap in when they have something they want to verbally share. So they would tap in with a new idea, a challenge, a build on, or a question. So let's say I have a question. I would tap in, and now my icon's in the middle, just like these other 2 students. So at this point, one of these 3 students is going to turn their mic on and actually say their idea, speak up, share it. And when they're done, they're going to go and they're going to tap out.
Okay.
So this isn't really meant to be a queue system. it's meant to have students really drive the discussion themselves. So when they recognize that there's a space and nobody's speaking, then that would be more appropriate to speak up. Or, they just patiently wait for a break and they would then jump in. Sometimes that's a little much for students to be able to manage right off the bat. So we either recommend the teacher can manage it and be the moderator and say, okay, we're going to hear from Alex first or then Afia, or you get one of your really confident students to be the moderator. And they could be the one saying, okay, we're going to take the challenge first. Alex is going to go, then Afia, and then anybody else who wants to jump in will take after that. So it kind of helps scaffold them. It gives them a little more structure of who's going to speak next and how it's going to work.
Okay.
Students can vote for who they'd like to hear from. So we could see, okay, 4 people really want to hear from Afia, but she's tapped in 18 times. So maybe we'll actually hear from Alex first, or, the class can now start thinking, okay, who should we be hearing from? If we're trying to get everyone to speak, who should we encourage to speak up first, type thing.
Okay.
Students can participate in polls. So you could click here and at any point a teacher can send out a poll, and maybe it's getting a little quiet. You want to re-engage them, make sure everybody's kind of paying attention. You could redirect their attention that way. So this is student view. Now I'll flip back over to teacher view and show you the few other different features that are here. So now in teacher view, it looks pretty similar. I could also tap in, let's say I want to bring up a new idea and steer the class in a new direction. I could click teacher tap in and actually share my ideas here, and this is kind of bring me the power to continue the discussion. Then I'm going to throw the ball back over to everybody else and have the students continue to drive the discussion. Students can also give each other a high five, so that's fun. As a teacher, I could I could nudge students. So if I see Alex is in there, but he's not really saying anything, I'm not really sure, I could send him a nudge and I could say, hey, do you have something to say? Or I could even say, great job for finally speaking up. And this is a one-way little nudge. They're going to get a little pop-up on their screen that you can, reinforce good behavior. Or you could kind of re-engage them and all that.
Okay.
And then the last thing is I could actually click each student, take my own private notes. I could use the rubric if I want, although sometimes it's a little complex to be marking students on the fly. You could see how many times they've tapped into the discussion. You could see their notes in real time, and then you can go and give feedback afterwards. So you can give them written feedback and get suggested feedback.
Okay, but it does not record what they're saying and transcribe it or anything like that, right?
Correct. At this point, there's no audio feature in the live roundtable, so that's why you would need Zoom or Hangouts in the background, or Google Meet, whatever it is. We are looking to add the audio component, although at current we don't have that.
Okay.
And then at the end of the discussion, I would say what's the most valuable is the data that you get from this. So you spend 5 or 10 minutes at the end, and you have this discussion with your students and ask, is this, okay, let's look at this graph. Is this an accurate representation of how long each student was talking for? Or were these students actually tapped in for a long time, but they didn't speak up? So we could look at this data and consider how we can encourage people in the future to speak up and all that.
Okay.
Then you get tap-ins per student. You could have that discussion. Okay, were you a lot above the class average, or were you a lot below? That's usually a good indication of how you can improve for next time. Maybe you should be, speaking up more often, or letting others have the floor. You could see as a class, we're really good at new ideas and challenges. Maybe we need to work on building on and finding the common thread in each other's points. And then you see this tap-in summary for each individual student. So now students are really held accountable here because we could all see the visual data summary of how students participated.
Okay.
So again, you could export all of this data, but there's a lot to work with here. Like I said, sometimes it's a little awkward the first few times, especially on Zoom, or Zoom or whatever video or audio you have in the background. Because it's such a student-driven activity, it can take some time getting used to, but over time, with good reflection and all of that, usually it helps.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about that, or like, do you think you generally get the concept and can see how it might work?
I think I get the basic concept. We've all been laughing about all the things we've had to learn over the last few weeks
Yeah.
to make teaching online effective for the kids.
Yeah.
I can see me doing the online one before I can see doing the live one.
Yeah.
In the near future, I'll put it that way.
Definitely.
Just it seems like a lot to take in at one time.
Yeah.
But I really do like the online one.
Yes, that's definitely what we're seeing as well. There's so much new that's happening right now, and we see the online roundtable being used much more than the live. And over time, we expect as teachers get more familiar and start to try new things, then the live might be something they want to consider afterwards. But yeah, no, you're totally on track to see this is a very this is a very dynamic and student-driven activity, and it's happening all in real time. So it's pretty different and can be a big jump. Breaking it up could be helpful as well, having them first do their initial idea and then go in later and have everybody online at the same time to do the commenting. That's another way that works.
Right.
But yeah, that's great. I will show you a couple other resources we have that's in this Google Doc, just in case it's helpful or you want to share it with any of your colleagues. So we have types of discussions you can have on Parlay. So here's some examples that other teachers have done in terms of types of kind of instructional activities, like collaborative problem solving or reflections or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just some scaffolding tips, like I said. Information to upgrade your account. We are offering Parlay free for the rest of the academic year, so if you enter the code online20, you'll get complete free access until everybody's back in school. So that's helpful. If you wanted to join a sample class and see what it looks like from student view and click around, I know sometimes that's really helpful. Here's instructions of how you would join.
Okay.
And then we also have lots of resources here as well. So step-by-step guide, and we have a whole resource folder, which I'm actually going to put a recorded version of this webinar, I think, in the Google resource folder as well.
Okay.
And then, of course, my email and all of that here. So if you have any questions, you can either email me directly, or when you're in Parlay, there's a little chat bubble in the corner here, and goes directly to our team. So you can ask us a question whenever you want, and we're pretty good at responding right away. So whether it's like a technical question of where is this button, or if it's an instructional question of how to actually roll it out, we could usually answer as soon as we can.
Right. Okay. Well, this has been a big help.
Yeah. Do you have any questions?